On a stormy evening in a dark mansion, a woman, fearing someone might see her, ran towards the hallway, took a statue and tied a rope to a balcony railing. She then leaped, ending her life in a decapitating fall. At a bustling party, Evie worked as a server and received generous tips. Her friend Grace handed her a swag bag, which revealed to be a DNA test kit. At home, Evie took the DNA test and mailed it off to discover her long-lost relatives. Shortly after, she received the results, revealing a newfound cousin Oliver from London, who expressed a desire to meet up. The next day, Evie met Oliver in a posh restaurant. Over the meal, Evie shared her mother's dream of visiting England to explore their family history. In response, Oliver excitedly informed Evie about their cousin Martin's upcoming lavish wedding in the English countryside. He extended a generous offer, inviting her to attend, even covering her flight expenses. Initially hesitant, Evie eventually accepted and flew to London. Upon her arrival, Oliver warmly welcomed her at the airport and whisked her away to the magnificent DeVille family mansion. The grandeur of the estate left Evie in awe, with a bevy of maids bustling about, meticulously preparing for the extravagant wedding celebration. Oliver introduced Evie to Walter, the lord of the manor. After that, Walter bid her to enjoy her stay as he departed. Mr. Field, the head butler, led Evie to her room, mentioning that she was free to explore the entire estate except for the library, which was undergoing renovations. He then introduced Mrs. Swift, who'd be Evie's maid during her stay. To Evie's delight, her room was stunningly beautiful. As she inquired about the portrait on the wall, Mrs. Swift revealed that it was Emmeline, a recently departed former lady of the house. In the evening, Evie decided to go for a jog and, to her astonishment, saw a ghostly apparition of Emmeline in one of the mansion's windows, uttering the cryptic words, "It ends here with me." She awoke, startled, realizing it was just a dream. Thirsty, she ventured outside her room for some water and stumbled upon the maids receiving instructions from Mr. Field. Suddenly, Mrs. Swift appeared, cautioning Evie to return to her room as it was unsafe in the dark. Meanwhile, the second maid was tasked by Mr. Field to clean the library. Inside, she lit a candle as the light switch had malfunctioned. However, while cleaning, she was viciously attacked by an unknown entity. The following day, Evie was awakened by her maid, who informed her that the family reunion had begun. At the party, Evie spotted Oliver, and the guests warmly introduced themselves, expressing their joy at her presence. A toast was raised to welcome Evie into the family. Following the toast, Evie delivered a heartfelt speech, expressing her gratitude to Oliver and all the guests for their warm reception. Curious about her connection to Walter, Evie asked Oliver if they were related, to which he replied that they shared no family ties. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Mr. Field summoned the two maids and instructed them to fetch some liquor and lock them in the secluded room. As the maids searched for the liquor, they were once again attacked by the same mysterious entity. During the evening party, Mr. Field introduced Evie upon her arrival, and he also announced the maid of honors, Victoria and Lucy. Victoria and Lucy extended a warm welcome to Evie, but Victoria's condescending and insulting behavior prompted Evie to distance herself from them. Nevertheless, she thanked Lucy for her kindness. Walter's arrival at the party took Evie by surprise as he invited her to dance. Oliver, sensing Evie's discomfort, offered to escape the party for a more meaningful conversation. They found refuge in a separate house, engaging in a lengthy, intimate discussion. Amid their flirting, as fireworks lit up the sky, Evie impulsively kissed Walter. As Evie slept, she abruptly awoke, spotting something strange with menacing claws atop her bed. Terrified, she hurriedly sought refuge under her bed as a creepy being prowled around her room. Trembling with fear, Evie cowered under the bed, but then Walter suddenly pulled her to safety. She informed him of the ominous presence in the room, tears streaming down her face. Walter, after checking the room and finding nothing, reassured Evie that it was now safe and that he was there to protect her. He offered to stay with Evie until she fell asleep, for which she expressed her gratitude. They lay side by side on the bed, and as they talked, Walter confided in Evie, sharing his desire to find someone who would see him for who he truly was and accept him. One day, as Evie headed to her room, curiosity led her to explore the library. Inside, she discovered a file with her name on Walter's desk, revealing that he had been researching her. Shocked and disturbed by this revelation, she swiftly began packing her belongings, ready to leave. However, Walter entered her room and asked if she's okay. She confronted him with the documents she had found, accusing him of stalking her. Walter explained that his intention was merely to learn more about her before allowing her into his home. When Oliver suggested inviting his long-lost cousin to the wedding, Walter wanted to ensure she wasn't an opportunist. Evie retorted that he should have asked her directly. Walter expressed that her sudden departure had frightened him and implored her not to run away. Their emotions running high, they shared a passionate kiss and made love, forging a deeper connection between them. At the rehearsal dinner that night, the table was filled with lavish food, and Evie arrived in a beautiful red dress alongside numerous guests. Curious about the bride and groom, she inquired with Walter, who smiled at her and then stunned the crowd by making an announcement. To Evie's astonishment, he revealed that they were to be wed, leaving her utterly bewildered. As the maid served refreshments, a horrifying act occurred. Mr. Field ruthlessly murdered the maid, allowing her to bleed to death. Evie was left in a state of shock and disbelief. Mr. Field then served the maid's blood to Walter, Victoria, and Lucy, unveiling their true nature as vampires. Walter then proposed a toast to their union in front of the guests. Frightened and desperate, Evie tried to flee the room, but was blocked by two men guarding the door. She pleaded with Walter to let her go, but he insisted that this was her new home. When Evie screamed for help, she was gagged, tied, and confined to a secluded room. Victoria and Lucy approached her, attempting to soothe her fears and explaining that they would soon become like sisters. Evie questioned why they were doing this to her. Victoria revealed that it was for her rare and special bloodlines, which, when combined, made them all-powerful and immune to the effects of time. Lucy added that in an upcoming ceremony, Evie would consume Walter's blood to absorb his power and gain the strength of 100 men, while Walter would drink her blood, granting them all eternal life. The next day, with the help of Mrs. Swift, Evie managed to escape. Mrs. Swift revealed that her great-grandmother had been a dear friend to her, explaining her assistance. She also imparted vital information. Stakes, beheading, or fire were the only ways to kill a vampire. Urging Evie to move swiftly out of England, she set her on her way. That night, Evie reached a nearby village and sought help from a woman. The woman offered shelter and even served her tea. However, her trust was betrayed when the woman's husband informed someone about Evie's presence. As Evie spotted a photo of the woman with Walter and his family, she swiftly poured her tea to the husband. But the woman struck her on the head, rendering her unconscious. As Evie woke up, she found Walter by her side. Confused and terrified, she questioned Walter's identity. Walter revealed himself as Dracula and promised Evie wealth, power, great strength, and eternal life if she became his bride. In disgust, Evie spat in his face. In response, Walter drank the blood of the maid next to Evie, leaving her horrified and fainting from the shock. Evie, in a wedding dress, proceeded down the aisle to marry Walter and completed their wedding rites. Walter then cut his wrist, allowing Evie to drink his blood to gain his power. As a result, Evie transformed into a vampire. She expressed a desire to bite the hanging maid, but instead set the room on fire, causing a frantic evacuation. Taking advantage of the chaos, Evie stabbed Walter in the chest, rendering him weak and aged. She then freed the captive maid, and as they made their escape, they encountered Victoria. A scuffle broke out between Evie and Victoria wounded Evie with her claws. The maid came to Evie's aid and was instructed to seek help. Lucy intervened, aiding Evie by striking Victoria. Victoria threw Evie aside and turned her menacing attention toward Lucy. A fierce confrontation ensued, with Lucy pushing Victoria harder, resulting in both of them being impaled by a spear and reduced to ashes. Suddenly, Mr. Field attempted to stab Evie with a spear, but she reacted swiftly, managing to hold the weapon and cut its edge. She stabbed Mr. Field in the chest, ultimately ending his life. Evie then picked up the cutting wire from the floor and made her escape. Shortly after, Walter appeared, crawling along the wall. Evie attempted to flee, but an aged and weakened Walter seized her by the neck in midair. Evie fought back, using the cutting wire to sever his arm and then kicked him toward the blazing flames. As Walter met his demise in the fire, Evie's vampiric powers began to fade, and she returned to her normal self. With the mansion consumed by flames, Evie left the burning chaos behind, bringing an end to the nightmarish ordeal. 2 weeks later, Evie with her friend Grace tracked down Oliver just as he was about to leave town, attempting to disappear. They will intend to kill him to exact revenge for what he had done to Evie.